Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Lunn, aka Jonnychipz, and you join me today for another In Conversation With. Well, my guest today, he is a technical architect. He's an Azure MVP and a Microsoft certified trainer. He's a huge community leader. On that note, my guest today is Gregor Suttie.
There we go.
Hi Gregor, how you doing? Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Yeah, very well. I'm doing good. I think it's the obligatory. We've got to talk about how many takes it takes me to do that introduction. Every guest I have, I think that should be the running joke. Hashtag 17 takes. For every. No, honestly, Gregor, thanks so much for agreeing to come and have a chat with me tonight. I mean, if anybody in the community that I wanted to get on the show to have a chat with, it would have been yourself. I think, you blush now, but I probably do you a disservice. But in your own right, you're a huge sort of community leader in the Azure space at the moment, and certainly somebody that I follow on the socials and the activities that you're up to. But I mean, I'll stop throwing accolades at you. I mean, for those people that might not know you out in the community space, do you want to just give yourself a quick introduction and let the guys know what you're up to and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Gregor Suttie. I live in just east of Glasgow in Scotland. So as Johnny said, I am an Azure architect for a company called Intercept in the Netherlands. I joined them about just 5 months ago, so September last year. So day to day, I get to basically design, implement, and kind of talk to customers for Azure solutions. So we're an Azure-only company. We work with independent software vendors, so ISVs. So it's basically just software companies, and we help them either move into the cloud, design their cloud infrastructure and services and support, and kind of do all that for them. So my main background is I've been a developer all my career. So I've been all the way back to Com Plus and VB6, and then I moved into ASP and then ASP.NET and basically C# all my time. I've also done a bit of SQL Server, quite a lot of DevOps, Azure DevOps, all that kind of good stuff. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, now it's pretty much focused solely on Azure, which is great because that's what I've always wanted to do, and I'm now an Azure architect, which is even better.
No, that's awesome, Gregor. I think, obviously we're just having a chat off camera there before we hit record. And I think it's interesting at the moment. I mean, you just described, this journey from coming from a development background, working in that kind of world for a number of years and working your way through to this architect's position now. So, I mean, do you get a chance in your day job now to kind of flex those developer muscles, or, how do you see that kind of skill set that you've kind of learned over the last few years? How does that play out for you now in an architect's position?
It's quite interesting because not too many architects come from a kind of developer background. So a lot of people talking recently about being an architect and having to learn to code. So I'm coming the opposite way. I've learned to code and then I'm trying to become an architect. So I've got challenges going in a different direction. So my challenges are in things like networking and kind of infrastructure, which I've always passed that off to other people to deal with. So I've kind of got to learn the other side of things. So yeah, I'm still doing development. Today I was developing some PowerShell scripts and debugging that in a foreign language. So yeah, I'm still hands-on. Been doing a lot of SQL Server stuff recently. Some data factory. Yeah, all sorts.
No, I've seen some of your posts about it as well on Twitter and whatnot. I mean, you seem to be, from an architect's position, you seem to be covering all bases pretty well at the moment. I guess it's funny you say that, to be honest, Gregor, with the whole coming it from a development background into the kind of operations architecture world. Yeah, you're right. That's exactly the kind of picture that I see. Myself, a lot of colleagues, we came from the other side of the fence, and. I just wondering, I mean, when I was speaking with Liam, the last guest I had on the show, we were talking about this dynamic really and kind of what does it mean of all the ops folk now got to rush out and learn to code, of all the developers, have they got to rush out now and start picking the brains of all the operations folks? I mean, how do you see it? What are you doing for yourself to kind of balance that kind of conundrum, I suppose?
Yeah, so there's currently 4 Azure architects at Intercept. So I'm lucky in the fact that I just kind of look at the development side of things. The other couple of guys, Richard's doing mostly AKS, Wesley does everything, and so does Remco. So if I'm needing some help with kind of maybe documenting a design and it's kind of networking stuff, I know a little bit, but not enough to be dangerous. So I reach out to these guys and get some help with that stuff. And consequently, they do the same. If there's any kind of database stuff or development type questions, DevOps questions, they come to me. So I'm quite lucky that we have a very good team of architects at Intercept, and we kind of cover pretty much most of the bases. So I'm lucky that way. But as you were saying, yeah, for me, I need to kind of learn networking better. That's the one area I'm pretty weak in. So obviously, as an architect, I need to know networking. So I need to spend time with that. But I'm currently kind of engaged in more data warehouse. I'm starting to do some AI stuff as well. So I need to kind of dip my toes into that a bit more. So I'm a kind of, what is it they say? You're not an expert in anything. I'm a kind of jack of all trades. Yeah, I'm a bit like that. I know a wee bit about a lot of things, but probably DevOps is the one thing I know most about.
I mean, do you know what? On that note, when you say things like that's a statement that's kind of plagued my career. I think I've just been one of those people that, it's like a kid in a sweet shop. It's like, oh, new technology, run and learn and then have a play. Personally, my own opinion is, from an architect position, that's kind of what you need to be doing. It's my kind of own opinion. Is getting that broad view of, I mean, let's face it, Azure is such a huge platform. Clearly, there's not one person going to know deep dive on one thing, let alone the breadth that Azure covers. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say, because, I mean, we'll probably come on to it in a second, but kind of that keeping up with that pace of change again, isn't it? And how do you select which bit that you want to look at first? I mean, what's your method, Gregor? Do you kind of look at it on a case-by-case basis when you're working with a particular customer? Do you think, oh, they want something new, so I'll run at that? Or have you got a planned, this is an area I want to be? How do you kind of manage that for yourself?
When I first started, I had some planned areas that I was very weak in, like networking. And I thought I'll go and kind of look at that. But since I've started and getting really working with customers, I kind of had to do what you just suggested there. When a customer asks about AI, I have to go and kind of dip into that area. And I usually start with Microsoft Learn, look at the courses on that, and then kind of start creating some projects for myself with the AI within Visual Studio or on Azure, just to get a good feel for it. But yeah, it's difficult. So I'm actually doing a talk at Scottish Summit, small plug there, on what it takes to be an Azure architect, and I'm covering all of this. So what I think it takes to be an architect. And as you just said, I think you kind of need to know a little bit about quite a number of things. There's no way you're ever going to know everything about Azure. It's just not possible. If you think you can, then you're up a gum tree, as they say.
Yeah.
If you know a little bit, you can at least talk to your customers and kind of advise them, and then you can spend the time looking up the rest of the information that you might need to know. But you're never going to know everything about Azure, and even trying to do that is foolish. Some people say you're better off being an expert in one area, and like yourself, I'm kind of not an expert in any area, more kind of broad. And sometimes I think that hurts your career. Sometimes I think it can actually be detrimental. If you want to stand out, you need to be an expert in one area. So I don't really stand out because I'm not an expert in any area. I just know enough about quite a lot of areas, which is kind of the opposite.
I think there was a good like hashtag. Maybe you shouldn't, base your career on hashtags, but there was a good little one, and it says hashtag learn it all. Now, it's quite a grandiose statement, learn it all, because, as we know that we can't learn it all. But I mean, I suppose maybe not that I'm here to give advice out or anything, but I don't know how you see it from your side of the fence. But certainly from my point of view, you need to kind of learn at least, I know Microsoft, they do the fundamentals exams, which kind of gives you a good flavour for the areas that each technology is kind of dealing with. But I think as an architect, you need to go a little deeper than the fundamentals, up to kind of that associate kind of level, if not a little bit deeper in some areas. So it sounds a little bit, I don't know what the word is, maybe it's a little bit egotistical, but sometimes I think you're right, people certainly look at you as maybe a generalist or not a very, not a specialist in one or any given area. And so somehow that doesn't make you valuable. And I think, I don't know how you find it, but whether you're out, obviously when none of us are out at the moment speaking face to face with customers, but certainly those softer skills, the ability to speak to a customer, understand, the customer's requirements, maybe not at a technical level, but all of those other softer areas or those business related areas and customer requirements. Do you see it like that, Gregor? And is that the kind of job that you're doing as an architect at the moment with your customers?
Yeah, so my day-to-day job involves maybe speaking to a customer for the first time. So they'll maybe fill out a form that we've asked them to fill out, just a kind of general question about the company size, what do they do, have they played with Azure, do they have an environment set up, what would they like us to do, and then you basically start off with a design call, and you basically just speak to them. So it's soft skills, as you say. You basically try and get out of them what is it they're after and why. Half the battle is why you want to move to Azure. Is there any particular reason, anything you're particularly going after or trying to do? So yeah, you need to kind of have a chat with them, get all the requirements, and then what we tend to do is put a design document together. Sure. And then after that, we'll set up a call with them and basically just go over what we think is the right move for them and discuss it. But there's also talking to them about all sorts of things about governance and have they thought about governance from the start. So a lot of people we speak to have created some Azure resources and now they want some help because their governance isn't in place. And
no, definitely, yeah.
A lot of people are kind of trying to put in governance when it's too late, or not too late, but after the fact, which is pretty much is too late. So yeah, we talk to customers about a lot of things. So I love my job. It's different every day. Every customer's different. During the day, I'll talk to 2-3 customers, and they're all doing different things in Azure. So that's half my problem. Is like I'm talking to someone yesterday about Friday about AI and what they want to do with AI. So I didn't actually know a lot of the answers to the questions. So I basically said I'll get back to you this week, and I'll have to go off and try and find that information. So,
but that's challenging. That's the wonderful life of an architect, though. Yeah, is that I think that is an architect's role, is that you're in, as the voice, that the earpiece to listen to those requirements, and the more broad Azure and in detail in certain areas, that I suppose the more relevant the conversation is with your customer or so if you might not be that expert, but you know a man that is, sort of thing, like you say. You've got a good team of people and you've each got your specialist areas. So I mean, I just I suppose it's a really valid thing to talk about, especially I guess for those sort of new into the IT industry, maybe maybe they've got their sights set on, aiming to become an architect in a cloud platform. And like you say, if you're doing the talk, then I guess you're probably going to cover a lot of this in that talk. But, it's almost understanding that you kind of need to take the blinkers off almost, isn't it? And understand not only what the technology does. Again, we were talking about this briefly before the call, but it's being able to apply that knowledge. Do you find the same thing? It's being able to translate what the fluffy slideware says and the brilliantly presented demo does into kind of business requirements. I mean, I guess. Yeah. No, that's definitely a part of it, without a doubt. You've got to take the requirements and kind of figure them out. What are the real requirements? But you've also got to talk to customers about things they haven't considered, like governance, security. What kind of accounts do they want? Do they use Lighthouse to get the access? Do you want to lock it down? All sorts of things. We get a lot of questions about things like data governance. So we deal with a lot of companies in kind of Western Europe and Germany and places like that. And they're always asking similar questions about GDPR, where is the data, all that good stuff. So and they're not necessarily technical questions, I guess. I think, again, it's kind of drawing on knowledge that, all of a sudden you're asked a question that's, to do with regulatory compliance in a faraway country that you may not have even visited. So, I think it's probably wise to kind of shine a bit of a light on that as to, what the... I mean, I've made a couple of notes just to talk about, but job roles is one thing that is interesting, especially, the likes of me and you. We're both at this kind of architecture zone where we're doing very similar work by the sounds of it with our respective customers. But you got this whole tier of kind of job role, and I don't know about you, Gregor, but I'm seeing this kind of mix between the roles. Obviously we've got clearly defined developer operations, but even like in the consultancy space, or you've got the concept of an engineer, a cloud engineer, you've got a consultant, you've got architects. I mean, how do you see that landscape working out? It could be clear cut, I suppose, but I mean, I see quite a lot of mix. Is it similar for you?
I think there is quite a lot of mix. We're lucky at Intercept though, so we have Azure Architect, so that's kind of like the first protocol for the customer. So we design and implement the environment. So we'll set up the environment for our customers, and then we can hand it over to the managed services team. So we have 2 continuous improvement teams of about 10 guys in total, and their job is basically to take that environment, make sure it's secure, make sure it's following best practice, make sure it's got cost management policies and all that stuff, and they look after it once it's in production and signed off for the customer. So I am still doing development, don't get me wrong, but we're probably needing a data engineer. So yeah, what you were saying there about job lines being blurred, without a doubt. We're just lucky just now that we don't really have that problem at the moment.
I think it's just an interesting thing that, the speed of change, we talk about the speed of change, how much we've all got to learn to stay on top of what we think our jobs are at the moment. And I think the reality is, I know traditionally as a consultant or an architect, you would go out to a customer or have a customer meeting, and you would be seen as you are the font of all knowledge with the experience and the technical ability. And I think just putting it out there, that isn't so much the case now. I think it's more about you are definitely obviously an expert with good experience to be doing that role that you're doing, but it's the soft skills, the dealing with customers, the extracting the requirements in a way that you can apply what certain technologies can do. But then it's that whole thing then. You've got commercials to deal with, you've got the actual project management teams. It's such a wide bag of skills to have, completely outside of the technical ability, I suppose. But I suppose
also seeing architects. So for me, architects is probably, I've got my own personal opinions on architects. I think architects should probably deal with the end-to-end thing. So I think deployment and security should be part of an Azure architect's job. Now, a lot of people in the past would say an architect just designs a system and then doesn't implement it. I'm not a fan of that. I'm also not a fan of, this might be a little bit controversial, but I think an architect should have at least deployed the solution and tested it before you pass that off to a customer. Now, not everyone agrees with that, but I don't know how an architect can design a system that they've never tested. So how do they know it actually works? So
No, go on. Sorry, Greg. Go on.
I could be an architect that designs anything, and not anything, but I'm sure I could borrow an Azure architecture diagram from the Azure Architecture Center and pass that off as my own and just say, implement that. And I just think an architect needs to be able to have tested it, made sure it works, even right through deployment. So when I'm talking at the Scottish Summit, I talk about an architect who, in the past, if you think of an architect building a house, then they would have taken care of everything. They would have checked the materials, you know what I mean? They would have overseen the deployment, the building of the house, right through to completion. And I've seen some architects in previous jobs, not Azure architects, just like general architects, who basically just designed the system and then passed it off to the developers. And I never really felt comfortable with that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you there, Gregor, to be honest. I think it is, I think it's down to the individual as well, the person doing that role. It sounds like you're very similar to the way that I personally try and work, which is I've had this motto that I wouldn't ever tell somebody to go and do something that I haven't done myself, so that I can at least offer that level of, go and do it to learn and experience those things for yourself. But if you get stuck, come back, because I've kind of lived and breathed those pains. So yeah, I agree. I think the only slight caveat for me is, clearly we're in a world where literally, I don't know about you, Gregor, but certainly when I'm doing some customer design work or implementation work, well, if we concentrate on the design, by the time I've drawn up that design, passed it through review processes, things like that, got sign off from a customer, something has gone into GA or something has gone into preview that potentially changes that design, so it's almost having that ability to kind of roll back or keep up with the pace of change. That's certainly one thing that I found challenging.
I always think of my design as a living, breathing document. Very rarely will I design something up front, and when it goes to production, it matches the design document. That just doesn't happen. As you said, things come out and things change. So yeah, I always go back to the document and kind of make sure once it's deployed to production and in use, you go back and update the documentation with the actual initial design and now the current design, because it will change without doubt.
And I guess you're right. And I guess the reason I think, I thought I'd mention that is that certainly, there are customers I speak with that part of their own internal processes is that they kind of still operate in this, kind of waterfall methodology where they expect a design, we're going to sign off on that design, and we're going to implement it. So I think it's a relevant thing to point out that, yeah, I completely agree. Things should be a work in progress, a living document, like you say there, where when we come to actually deploy that, there may be a slightly different way of doing it. I mean, is that generally how you see things with customers at the moment?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we never really specify how we're going to deploy it. We actually deploy it ourselves most of the time. So we don't say like we're going to use ARM templates or we're going to use what we normally do is PowerShell with some AZ CLI. So we don't really care how it gets deployed as long as it's in source control and it's repeatable and it's documented so that anyone can pick it up, because that's another huge thing that I think an architect should help with. I guess it depends on where you work, but where we work, I always think that we should, when we're passing it over to the continuous improvement teams, that we have it all documented. And so I always think, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, would somebody be able to look at what I've done and pick it up?
I mean, that's an interesting concept as well, because I mean, you mentioned obviously DevOps earlier, and I think we touched on a little bit of infrastructure as code, that kind of thing. I mean, from my perspective, it certainly seems that there's this, kind of big snowball coming down the mountain where certainly customers, more and more customers that I'm seeing are kind of opt-in for that infrastructure as code way of handling their infrastructure now. And that kind of throws up 1,000,001 different questions in my mind, is that things like, have they got internal skills to kind of operate that, or do you pass it over to a managed service like, Intercept or, another company? I mean, how are you seeing at the moment? Are you seeing similar things to me from infrastructure as code?
All of our customers are wanting to do infrastructure as code. We actually still see customers coming to us who want to move to Azure, for example, and they're deploying manually. So what I always tend to do is, I'm not a massive fan of taking a project off of a customer and then implementing it. I always want to sit with them and show them, especially when it's the DevOps pipeline. So what we tend to do is we try and get our customers on board with moving into Azure DevOps and setting all the pipelines up. And I like doing that with the customer so that they can see how easy it is, how to implement it, where the scripts are, and how to go about it. I'm not a fan of deploying something and then just leaving it. That's not how we kind of operate. We always like to kind of show how we've done it.
I think that's a valid point as well, because I think gone are the days where you call a consultant or an architect in, they do a design, you approve it, they come back, they install it, and it sits running in your data center, and you call some guy, support guy, when you have a problem. I think that's a very real situation now, isn't it? Where I think cloud has enabled this agile way of working, this quick change kind of way of working. I think, I guess the reason for me bringing this up as a point of conversation is I'm seeing a lot of businesses that are kind of still, transitioning across from that kind of I call it legacy. It's not absolutely not a legacy way of working, but a different way of working that, why would you want to go to this DevOps? And again, I had a chat with other guests about this, the same kind of subject area, is that what are the benefits? And, how do you see it from your point of view? Do you feel it's something that absolutely customers should be doing? Is it based on a customer's requirements? How do you play that with customers, Gregor?
So it depends. Well, it doesn't really depend on the customer, but we're always going to use infrastructure as code no matter what. We have customers who aren't using it, and we always kind of do the design with infrastructure as code in place. Now, the main reason for that is we just want it repeatable. We want it to be able to be fast. We want the code and source control, and we want to be able to document it so that anyone could run it. That's the kind of main reason. Yeah, and a lot of customers, after I've tried it, they kind of get stuck on it, or they've still got a lot of manual steps. So one or two customers we've got have tried Azure DevOps, and they've got some pipelines built, and they've got the code and source control, but they've still got some manual steps to actually approve steps in the process. And we always try and help automate all of that. So that's kind of what we've been doing.
I mean, there's no hiding from it. If for any business that's looking to go down this path, if they've not already sort of invested in their own people, we're assuming they're a company that have gotten their own internal IT and systems departments and help desks. If they've not invested in those people to kind of upskill, do you see that as a problem, or do you see that as something that can be fixed? I mean, is that part of your conversation, I suppose?
Yeah, it's part of the conversation. So I always ask the customers, can you bring a developer into the conversation, or the DevOps person if you've got any? And I always ask them, are you doing infrastructure as code? And then I always ask to kind of get a wee bit of an insight into how are you doing it? Do you need some help with it? So it's all about upskilling for me. I detest seeing people do implementations and then leaving the company with, here's your Azure environment, catch you later. That's not how we do it. I've also got obviously the continuous improvement, but even before that, I want to make sure that the end customer who's set up their DevOps pipeline, either they set it up or we help them set it up so that we take them through it. Yeah, I think that's key.
And it's definitely a partnership, isn't it? If you've got a customer, or if you're watching this video and you are, an IT pro in a business that's maybe starting out on this cloud journey, it's just realizing it's not all necessarily just about the technology. Clearly there's lots of other things that need to be discussed. And I've spoken with you on Twitter about things like Cloud Adoption Framework, and I've certainly given a presentation or two. But Microsoft have got that kind of Cloud Adoption Framework package, haven't they, on their website? That it's a really good set of resources to kind of help navigate through this journey.
Yeah,
so I mean, on that note, Gregor, I mean, we've spoken quite a lot about how do we do in our jobs. We both happen to be Azure architects. How we keep up to date with skills and the broadness of it. I mean, like I said, I've been following you for a little while, not in a stalkerish way, but on the socials. Some might say that is stalking, but I don't know. Sorry, officer. But yeah, you've done a significant amount of exams over a relatively short period of time, Gregor, haven't you? I mean, do you want to talk to us a little bit about motivations? What you get out of examinations and certifications?
Yeah. So about 3 and a bit years ago, I was working for JP Morgan in Glasgow as a developer, doing a 2-week sprint. I call it a feature factory. So working on the same 2-week sprint every week. Working on one project. It was a monolithic web app, used mission critical and used by 280,000 people. So it wasn't a small app, but yeah, got fed up with it. Internally, everyone was building it. They were building their own cloud. I had a look at it, wasn't really interesting, decided to get into cloud. So being a Microsoft guy, Microsoft background my entire life, I thought I'll have a look at Azure. Had a quick look at AWS, didn't really understand what was going on. So got into Azure. Started trying to learn Azure, like most people do from scratch. Where do you start? Such a big topic. So I thought I'll maybe tackle some exams. So that's kind of how I got started with exams. Sat the AZ 100 and 101 within a couple of weeks because the betas come out, failed them and just moved on. Now, the reason why I sat the exams is I want to, first of all, I kind of set a practice test and then I usually get about 10 out of 10%. Yeah. And then I sit and study and then I'll do them again and I'll think, right, now I've got 60%. I've learned something. Good. Let's keep going. And I just love learning. Can't stop. I've got this bug where I just need to learn everything. I just want to learn it all. I know that's not a thing, but so sat as many exams as I could. Like you, something comes out and I'm like, well, that looks interesting. AI exam, for example, really like that. The cool stuff. Great technology. Probably do the same with IoT later this year. I'll look at that. So yeah, I just want to learn as much as I can. It also helps talking to customers when you have even the fundamentals. You've got an idea of what they're talking about. You can give them advice. But my advice for if you want to learn Azure is have a look at Microsoft Learn. Look at what exams might interest you. Don't just sit them because they're exams. Sit them because you want to learn the content. And I was doing 2 hours a night for a long while, just dedicated to try and learning as much as I can, with the view to try and become an Azure architect. And here I am.
So do you find having that goal, that's the motivation for you? That's where you want to get to. So are you one of those kind of people that kind of can get motivated by setting your own targets?
Every 3 months I'll write down about 4 or 5 goals that I want to do, and even when I'm doing an exam, I'll say I was going to do the AI 100 tomorrow. If I was going to start studying for it, well, I'll give you an example. I started studying today for DP 300, the SQL exam. Okay, so I'll book the exam in a month's time. So there's
Right.
nothing like a bit of pressure to go, right, I need to put time
I nearly
aside.
choked then.
Turn the Xbox off, turn the TV off, start studying, because I will not move that date. And I'll sit it. Well, I haven't booked it, but that's the kind of thing I do. I usually book it for a month in advance.
I mean, you mentioned it earlier when you said you sat the kind of the initial Azure sort of advocate exams. You fail them. I mean, that's
I failed the first two. Yeah.
I mean, people ask me quite a lot as well. Is because I've done a few exams in my time, and people say, oh, you pass these exams. Is it difficult? And it's like, look, don't get hung up. You're going to fail them, no doubt. Unless you've got some photographic memory that you can kind of read text and store it, you're going to fail them, because that's part of the learning process, in my opinion. It's don't get me wrong, it's not great to fail. I mean, I know Microsoft used to do those second shot vouchers, didn't they, on occasion back? I don't think they do them so much now, do they? I've certainly not seen or heard of them for a while, but certainly if you're paying for the exam, it's not great if you fail, I guess, from saving that money, but hopefully you can get the company that you're working for to pay for them for you. I think it's a valid point there, isn't it, Gregor, to say that if you are just starting out, don't get hung up. If you fail an exam,
I failed the first. When I saw my score, I failed by about 10 marks, the first two, and I thought, this proves that I've actually learned something.
Absolutely. The next time it's that extra question that just gets you over the line, isn't it? And
yeah, I mean, I've also passed a couple of exams right on 700, so that doesn't bother me as long as I pass.
Yeah, you and me both. I think it's just, I mean, we touched on it earlier on. It's great having these certification sort of badges and whatnot. And I know to some people, and to me, to be honest, now and again, it's like, it's nice. Oh, look, I passed a new exam. I've got another little shield. It's kind of gamification a little bit. That it's nice to kind of go for that. But in the real world, then when you roll that back to what does that actually mean for customers? It's about, I don't know about you, but for me, it's being able to apply that knowledge that you've just gained in studying. Do you use it in the same way? So I use an exam as a mechanism to look at all the skills, the skills measured, and tick off each area as you go, and hopefully retain that knowledge so that when you do speak to a customer, you kind of, I kind of know where they're going now. I've not dealt with that before. Do you see a similar thing?
Absolutely. So, for example, I'm probably going to do the Power Platform at some point this year, because at some point customers are going to come to us and start asking us about that, and I don't think anyone at Intercept's really looked at Power Platform as yet. So I'll definitely look at the fundamentals and potentially the one after that, just for the fact that if someone does ask me about it, then they can come to me and say, Gregor knows something a little bit about that. Not doing it for the badge, not doing it for anything else, just I'm interested in the Power Platform stuff and what can it do. That's the only reason. For example, I'm doing DP300 because a lot of customers are asking me about performance tuning and Azure SQL. And I know a little bit, but not enough to be dangerous. So I want to do the exam so that I've got some kind of idea on what I'm actually doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you use, similar again to me, you use the exam to kind of set the scene almost for that technology. And just because you pass an exam doesn't necessarily mean you're going to rush out and then be the world's greatest, architect or subject matter expert. You've set the grounding.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I did the AI exam, set the ground. I kind of know cognitive services and the AI machine learning studios and all that. I can have a conversation about it. Could I implement it? Probably not, but at least I know where to start.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, isn't it? It's like, I think certainly if you're from a developer background, there's certain elements to Azure that lend themselves far more freely to a developer than they would to an operations guy. Things like cognitive services, and I know Microsoft have done some fantastic work with putting in sort of pre-packaged solutions like the forms analyzer and stuff like that. That's kind of built on machine learning and AI. And I think, I don't know about you, but for me, that's definitely stuff that's there now today. And clearly there are businesses using that, but for me, that's the goal. That's where we're all going to be working in 5 to 10 years' time. Do you see similar trends to that?
Yeah, I think I see the trends that I'm seeing just now is everyone's doing AKS and everyone's moving data into the cloud. And with more data in the cloud and more containers in the cloud, I think that's when AI and machine learning and cognitive services will really take off.
Do you know what?
Everyone's slowly moving together to kind of move in that direction.
Yeah. Do you know what? I probably am seeing the same thing with it. You mentioned AKS and containers and whatnot. In fact, you're working with Richard Hooper at the minute, aren't you? You're putting together like a bit of a community focused. I mean, what's it called? Talk to us about that, Greg, and let us know what you're up to there.
Yes. So I spoke to Richard, and he's an AKS guy. He's been doing AKS for the last 2 years, pretty much not just AKS. That sounds bad, but he's been doing AKS predominantly. And at the minute, we're actually seeing probably 2 out of every 3 customers is doing AKS.
Wow. Okay. Right. Okay.
So we're building a big internal AKS kind of landing zone type managed service thing, and he's been really busy doing that. So he's flat out with AKS stuff, and I can just see the AKS is kind of everyone's going towards that slowly, well, not even slowly, pretty rapidly. Yeah. In fact, I don't really know AKS. I purposely ignored it for a wee while because when I look at it, I just think doesn't really look. It's not exciting at all compared to AI.
It's more knowledge. I always look at a new technology, Gregor, and think, if I learn that, what's going to fall out the other side? Some part of my knowledge, I'll come on one day and forget my kids' names, I'm sure. But
well, I have the worst memory in the world, and Richard could attest to that. So I have a lot falls out of sight when I'm learning something new. Let me tell you.
You and me both. Yeah, I know it.
I actually think if I passed an exam on the Monday and you asked me again on the Wednesday, I'd be like, half the score. I just see me pass it, and it's like it's gone.
I mean, but that's the thing, though, isn't it? So, I mean, I think there aren't any specific exams out yet, are there, for AKS predominantly? No. They kind of fall into the architecture and technologies exams, don't they? I think at the moment. So yeah,
they might be coming. Yeah.
You're focused pretty heavily on AKS then at the moment. So yeah, you're putting a series together, aren't you, with Richard at the moment?
So I know next to nothing about AKS, and I thought to myself, I can't be the only person who knows nothing. So I said to him, why don't you teach me, and why don't we do it as a... So this comes back to my bugbear in online learning. There's not too many projects get put together. So the plan here is to try and teach people and teach me AKS from the very, very beginning. So you have absolutely no knowledge of what AKS is, even what does AKS stand for. And we're just going to record a video probably once a week and try and cover as much of it as we can. So he teaches me and I get to ask all the stupid questions. So to begin with, we've covered off what is AKS, what is Kubernetes. In fact, we start off with what is Kubernetes, then it's what is AKS. Then we're kind of covering the things like nodes and pods and what are they actually, what are they? People might hear you talking about a node and a pod and all this stuff, and I'm like, right, so let's talk about that. And today we've just launched the episode 4, which we're doing how to create an AKS cluster using the Azure portal. Then we'll move on and cover things like how to do it in the AZ-CLI, PowerShell, and then we'll dive into sort of lots of content. I reckon this will go on for a long time. Like we'll be probably up to 100.
Do you know, Gregor, I've caught obviously the first couple of episodes, and I really, they're a great format because you're keeping them relatively concise, like digestible. Yeah. So they're not hour long. Well, I don't know what the number 4 is. I've not had a chance to watch it yet, but they're not sort of hour monolith kind of techie things. And it's 2 guys, like you just said, speaking about a technology that, one guy is the expert, the other guy is the guy that wants to know, and it's almost like you're eavesdropping just on a conversation with somebody trying to get some training. It's a great format, yeah.
So the one bugbear I have with online training is I would really like to see advocates or developers or whoever from Microsoft stand up on a whiteboard and basically, I've seen some whiteboard videos with Brendan Burns where he's actually drawing stuff and talking about why this connects to that. And this is what I'm trying to get at. You kind of want to ask questions and explain why, not just like learn small snippets from Microsoft Learn. I want to see a project being built bit by bit from the ground up and cover governance, cover all the stuff that everyone talks about in these little snippet videos, but like build a project. So I'd really like to see the community build projects online, have the code in GitHub, write blog posts to cover step 1 right the way through to step 100. Talk about considerations like cost, governance, why are you choosing this service over that service? What's the benefits? What's the pros and the cons? Cover everything. We're all kind of doing that for customers. And there is documents like that in the Azure Architecture Center, but they're kind of Word documents with Visio diagrams in them which don't really cut the mustard. And for me, I would really like to see someone build a project. So we're kind of building an AKS. We're actually going to take a web app and stick it in AKS.
Yeah,
just something simple. Just like take a .NET web app, put it into an AKS. We'll Dockerize it first. We'll talk about how to do that. We'll put it into containers, and then we'll put it in AKS, and then we'll go from there. We'll make it much more complicated, but we just want to cover why we're doing it, what we're doing it, what's the benefits, what's the drawbacks, how much does it cost, which is very important. Every customer you probably speak to goes, why are you doing that? Why does it cost so much?
Definitely, yeah.
So just trying to cover all that, basically. And I think AKS is huge, so that's what we went for.
I mean, it's really good sort of insights on that front, Gregor, because I think you're right. This whole learn something, how do you then apply it? We're back to that kind of conversation, aren't we? And I think, I suppose I wouldn't like to be on that forum where you're debating why, because certainly I know that a lot of conversations I have is, why are you choosing that way over this way? And it's like, no reason. You could do it that way if you want, sometimes. So I guess sometimes it's difficult, but no, I completely get the concept in that it's not just about learning something for an exam, watching a nice, brilliantly well presented presentation. I always think of looking at those well documented demos as, look, this is almost like Bully's special prize back in the day with Bullseye. This is how it should look. This is what you could do with it. And then you take that to the real world, and customers have got legacy this, they got that application there, they got this problem that kind of breaks that utopian dream of how it should work. So yeah, I completely agree with you, that concept of building that end-to-end project. And like you say, you're working with Richard at the moment, and yeah, so far so good. I mean, the AKS videos, personally, I've done very small amounts, just kind of scratch that surface with AKS to get the initial, the container discovery work and what is AKS and Kubernetes. So for me personally, I'm definitely following that. Where can we find that series, Gregor? Is it on the?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, one sec. I'll just stick you over. There we go.
So if you can see my screen, we've just basically got a Cloud Family YouTube channel, and we've just got basically the videos. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 videos at the moment. So yeah, so it's called AKS Zero to Hero. The idea being that I'm the zero, Richard's the hero. He's going to teach me AKS because he's really good at that. He spends a lot of time on it, knows his stuff, and I get to ask daft questions like, why does it cost this much? Why am I clicking this?
Well,
and why? We're going
to. Some would argue they're not the daft questions, though, are they? They're the questions on everybody's mind. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I know the answer to some of the questions, but I'm still asking them because I know people will think, why is he clicking that as opposed to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we'll cover doing it in the portal. We'll cover doing it in PowerShell, CLI. We'll try and cover as much as we can. Obviously, the problem with projects is there's requirements. I mean, we don't have requirements, so we're kind of making it up as we go along, but we're going to try and cover as much as possible.
I mean, it's great insights, though, isn't it? When you've got somebody with vast experience like Richard, when he's working with AKS and Kubernetes at that kind of level, I mean, these kind of videos are kind of like gold dust, really. You don't I mean, in terms of real world examples of the kind of things and problems you hit, it's.
I can't point to too many video resources where I can ask a question, or someone asks a question of why are you clicking that and why not this and why does it cost so much? It's just good to be able to do that.
I mean, that's a valid point, though, Greg, because, I mean, looking at that, I mean, we'll put a link to the Cloud Family YouTube and the Cloud Family website below, or I'll put it on a blog post so people can get access. Anything we talk about now throughout, I'll get a big list of URLs, and we'll put them all below anyway. But on that point, Gregor, about the Cloud Family, I did a quick tweet the other night, only because exactly like you said there, when I think one of the things I've noticed in being a little bit more community focused, reaching out into Twitter world. I know we're all virtual at the moment, but I think it's fair to say I've gained what I hope is a nice, good friendship with the likes of yourself, Gregor, and various other people across the community. All of those guys are all expert and girls. They're all experts in those in their own specialisms and specific areas. A lot of people are doing YouTube content. They've got blog posts at the moment. And I think I just put a tweet out saying, look, anybody that I'm kind of friends with on here or is following me, do me a favor, list your YouTube URL. I want to subscribe to you and follow you, because I don't do that for any other reason, but it's that thirst for kind of knowledge, and who better to get that knowledge off than people who are out there living and breathing this technology on a daily basis. So I know, I mean, when I did that and I noticed, I thought, right, okay, this URL, this list of YouTubes is going to fritter away in the history of my Twitter at some stage. And it dawned on me, you know, something I signed up for with the cloudfamily.info website, which is an initiative, I think, is it just you and Richard set that up originally, or is it a wider team? So I think I pointed a few people. I said, look, to be honest, if this is good, go and put it up on this cloudfamily.info website, because I've you know, I must admit, I've not gone to that website too often. I think I signed myself up with my blog, but I thought, okay, and actually you guys have already tried to do this for the community, kind of bring all this together. So I mean, is there anything else you want to add around the Cloud Family? And
can I share my screen again?
Yeah, I'll put you back over.
So just that very reason for what you said, people share a lot of good stuff and it disappears on Twitter and you never see it again. And then you think, oh, what was that link? What was that person's blog? So we just tried to basically, we wanted to call it Azure Family to begin with, but we thought better of putting Azure in the name just in case we were getting it. So we basically have, you can sign up. It's not really a membership, but we put in people who want to be part of the Cloud family. We've actually got a committee now, so we've got 6 people on the committee. We just come up with ideas and try and do things. So we've got Claire, Adam, and Amy, who all work at Microsoft, and we've got Sam Erskine. So kind of diverse group of people that we just try and come up with. This is just a list of people who can join it. It's free to join. You just basically put your name in. And so on the left, we have Cloud Champions, and every month I kind of keep an eye on Twitter for people who's doing a lot of good content. And then we try and give them a wee shout out. So have a look at it as for February. So good self.
I know. I got to thank. I mean, it's like you're giving me some kind of a backhander here. You come on my. No, I can't thank you enough. It's a real privilege to kind of be given that accolade, Gregor. Like I said to you on Twitter,
the idea behind it is to try and shine light on people who've been doing some good stuff. So it gives you a little bit about the community and stuff that they're doing, and just to make people aware of good people in the community and how to get in contact with them and share the resources. So that's the Cloud Champions. So we do that every month. We've also got a podcast. So myself and Richard are doing a podcast where we're just interviewing people who, again, are doing good things in the community, interesting people to talk to. So we've been talking to all sorts of people. Believe it or not, this talk doesn't get a lot of hits, but this is my favourite talk ever. So we spoke to, we got a wee typo there. Spoke to Michael Ryan, who is the EMEA manager for Azure Engineering. Now, I highly recommend you listen to this because he talks about the insides of Azure. Really cool stuff. So, yeah, the idea with the podcast is just talk to people who are good stuff and people who are interesting. We've also got some study guides. Oh, sorry, yeah.
No, I was going to say, Gregor, and this isn't, obviously you've got, I think I can't stress this enough. I think to try and relate to what this kind of content means to me is that it's almost like some people talk about the power of community, and if you're not kind of partaking in that way of working, putting a little bit back, doing a blog article, maybe doing a little bit of a YouTube video, or kind of partaking in Twitter, something real straightforward and simple. I don't think you understand what it means. But for me, before I embarked on this little journey of what I'm doing now, these videos and speaking to brilliant people across the community, my source of knowledge outside of official training courses, this was before Microsoft invested massively in MS Learn and have really built that platform up brilliantly well. If you didn't have access to CB Nuggets or something like that, it would be, Channel 9 videos from Microsoft. It would be scrolling back through the old sort of tech ed video sessions or Ignite video sessions and finding the content. But they were kind of like the only real source of knowledge. Now, I mean, what you guys are trying to do here with this site is all us community folk, like myself, I'm doing what I can, little bits and pieces, these videos. But, there's just too many people to count, that I've got in contact with. If we all kind of push towards a centre, I know there's lots of other people doing this kind of thing, but certainly for the Cloud family as we know it now, there's a fairly large collective of people kind of follow this scene, so to speak. but the content is brilliant. The content, honestly, and I don't just say this in a cliche manner, but I watch a hell of a lot of the content that others put out back into the community, and you're not going to get it anywhere else. I know you can Google search and you can YouTube, but just to echo what you're saying there, Gregor, the fact that you can kind of come have a browse, find somebody's blog. I don't know if you've got a search facility on there. There's a search facility on there.
Yeah, I've never actually tried it. Believe it or not.
There we go. We'll do an issue log now on the GitHub. But
there we go. It does work.
Yeah. No, so, but yeah, I mean, go on. You were talking us through what else is on there, because it's.
So the idea is basically what you said. People put lots of good content out, and it's difficult to find on Twitter. So if you might put a tweet out in an hour's time, that's gone. You know what I mean? You don't really. It's hard to search past previous content. So we've got some study guides. Some of these might be a little bit out of date, but we've got some Azure study guides. We've also got projects. So some people have built some really cool projects. Yeah. So this guy wrote like an ARM template viewer. Mitton's got a whole cloud skew diagram thing. So if you've got a project that you're working on and you're wanting to show it off, then go for it. Feel free to put it up here. I don't know if you've ever seen Azure Charts. Have you ever looked at that?
Brilliant website. Yeah.
This guy Gary's got a UK Community Connect where you can connect to speakers, and if you want to find speakers for talks, you put in the subject. Yeah. There's an Azure Spring Clean Games thing where the guys created some quizzes. And we've also got Jamie's Instagram playground. So that there. We've also got useful links. So I just put a list of useful links together. Just stuff that I find useful. So there's things like the Azure document, Microsoft Learn, training that's paid for, free training, some Slack channels, GitHub, and some random Azure links, and then the blogs. So this is where everyone puts the blog. It doesn't need to be Azure blogs. If you've got a blog on any topic, feel free to add it on here. So this is all in GitHub. Let me just browse to that. It's all open source.
I was going to say all this is open, isn't it, Gregor? So I mean, as you call it, so anybody can kind of go up there, maybe fork the GitHub repo, put your own content, your own changes, and create a pull request, and obviously
we've had quite a lot. Yeah, we've had quite a lot. We've got a lot of 30 plus contributors so far, so that's been really good.
I mean, I just thought, as I was speaking to you earlier, obviously about this, it's just a great, like we were talking before, that sometimes, other people might be doing this kind of stuff, but genuinely, it's just such a great sort of focal point. Unless the alternative, is that you join in the social exploits on Twitter, go and follow, find out who these people are. I mean, this is, you're pointing at, look, these are the kind of people that are active in the community. If you're new to the scene in terms of cloud or Azure, you might want to go and follow some of these people and just tuck into what they're saying. And I like to say that the content out there is fantastic, and and it's all free. At the end of the day, you're not having to go anywhere to kind of learn this. Just what I tend to do is stick a video on of something, half an hour, watch it whilst I'm whatever, just having a bit of tea or something. It's
So that was the idea behind it. Just have somewhere where people can put their link and everyone can try and find them.
But we'll put links obviously to this website as well. We'll put it all below. So, but yeah, personally, I'd encourage anybody that's watching this, go and sign up, submit. If you're doing a blog, even if you think it's insignificant, sign up, put it on there, because I mean, we might change gears. Have you got any more you want to show on that website, Gregor? Because I'm thinking of changing.
I've also got just a quick Azure resources thing that I put together. So this is just basically, if you're into Azure and you're wanting to get some knowledge on AKS, DevOps, exams, governance, policies, talks, and useful links, I've just put that together. So it's just these are the resources that I come across day to day that I find useful.
I mean, I think this is why the introduction of I view you as the royalty of Azure community, Gregor, because I know you've got to take the credits, but
this is mainly for me, because I'm like, right, what was the link to that? Like, there's one down here for learning KQL. So I've seen a tweet, somebody's put a tweet saying, if you want to learn KQL, here's a great example. So if you log into here, you can play about with KQL and learn custom query language. So I'm thinking, right, I'll forget about that link. I'm going to put it in an Azure, a GitHub link. It's just for me, but I've open sourced it so anyone can look at this.
Yeah, no, but I think that's the point, isn't it? Is that I appreciate that maybe over time this could come unwieldy, but I guess, it's just that thing, making it open source. It allows us all in the community to kind of do our little bit to kind of try and keep that up as a centralized set of latest, good set of resources that we can all keep up to date as a community. So, I just called it out the other day, and I think my Twitter feed went a bit crazy for a while there, because it was like, oh, everybody share, and it's great because I subscribe to all of those channels and I've watched quite a lot of the videos so far. But I think in a sustainable manner, this website crossed my mind that it's a great place to kind of store this content, and like I say, all the links we'll put it below. All I was going to say, Gregor, is maybe switch gears slightly, because we've touched on the community aspect of it. Obviously, let me flick back over to our camera. Obviously, with yourself, you've done, it's probably fair to say, a lot of community work over the last few years. Do you want to talk us through some of the initiatives that you've got going on at the moment? Because I know certainly back in December you had the festive tech calendar that was going off, which was phenomenal. I was watching the content going out there. I was watching, how it was being received, and it was brilliant. So just do you want to talk us through that? What that was like to be a part of, and the challenges you had with that, or the positives that came out of it? That'd be great to hear.
So a couple of years ago, I said to Richard, it'd be good to do something in December, because that's some fun. So at the end of the year, everyone's been at conferences. Well, we wish we'd been at conferences this year, but
yeah,
you know what I mean? It'd be good to do something fun and try and have a bit of fun at the end of the year. So we did the Azure Advent Calendar 2 years ago. Again, this was just to try and get. So we did a call for speakers just for new people, to try and get new people involved. So people who are wanting to get started in creating content. And basically we did, so I think it was 25 days worth of content. So it was 3 bits of content every day for the whole month of December. Well, for 25 days in December. Yeah. And then we spoke to, we had some Cloud Family Committee calls, and we decided to change it up a little bit, because we didn't want it to just be Azure, but we wanted to try and open it up to the PowerShell communities, SQL communities, sure. and everyone else. So we changed the name from the Azure Advent Calendar to the Festive Tech Calendar, and went for a whole month of content and try and do 3 pieces of content every day. And this time we tried to do more than just videos and blogs. So previously it was video and blogs. This year it was video, blogs, Twitch channels, hackathons, and kind of soft skills type stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Just to try and get more people involved and get more content that people would enjoy. So yeah, we set that up. We did a call for speakers thing. I kind of did a blog post on how to use Sessionize and a wee video. So we use Sessionize to set it all up, which is really good. If you've never looked at Sessionize, I highly recommend it, because you can make use of APIs and get a list. You can get a speaker wall, all the speakers taking part and stuff like that. So yeah, so the 3 people in the committee from Microsoft, Adam, Amy, and Claire, all helped us. So Microsoft put some money behind it to sponsor it, which was really kind of them. They did fancy wee videos. They managed to get some company to do that for us, which is brilliant. And we did 97 bits of content throughout December. It is a lot of work. Did it go well? I think it went all right. It's tricky trying to get all that content in December, because everyone's really snowed under and busy.
I'm sure, yeah. So, I mean, from what I saw, I think the view that I had from my side of the socials is that I couldn't watch it all. It was just loads. But the point is, you've got it all recorded somewhere. Have you? You've got it all. Yeah. So it's all still available, and I take it the website's still up, that people can see what the content is and search on it. And again, we'll put a link to it, because it just goes to show that, with people like yourself, Gregor, you're active in the community, drawing all this together. I appreciate it's not just yourself. There's a team of you guys looking after this kind of stuff, but you kind of bringing all this together and showing it not just for any other benefit, but just for people that want to learn this stuff. But where do we turn to?
Story. You'll know Shabazz. So Shabazz's first ever bit of content was, I think it was either Azure Spring Clean, which I'll give a shout out to, which is coming up shortly, or it was the Advent Calendar. So he'd never done any content before. So he reached out and said, I'd really like to take part. And now look at where he's got to. So he's got his own YouTube channel, his blog, he's got everything going on. So, and he just got a massive buzz from creating a bit of content and someone shining a wee bit of a light on him. So that was brilliant.
I mean, Shabazz is fantastic, and he's another great community advocate. I think I follow Shabazz, and if you're not, I will stick a link to Shabazz's. I think he's I am IT Geek. I think is his YouTube URL, but it's just. It sounds cliched. I think there's a certain level of cynicism within technical people generally. Don't you find, Gregor, that there's a certain amount of, oh yeah, this thing, but honestly, it's just since I've kind of turned to the community, and again, it sounds cliched. It sounds like I'm making this up, but genuinely, if you think you're a seasoned ID pro, brilliant, and if you're not active part of the community, I would hugely advocate turn around, look at the community, just give a little bit back, because personally, I always think, well, I've not given a great deal back. We like yourself, Greggy. You might be a little bit modest about what you do, but just that element of giving a little bit back. All of a sudden, what you get, I don't know about you, Gregor, but what you get back from the community is kind of tenfold. It's kind of so rewarding, isn't it?
I worked for a very good manager a couple of jobs ago, and he always said, "Pay your dues and pay your respect." And always think of the guy coming behind you. I shouldn't say guy. Always think of the person coming behind you.
Yeah.
And do what you can to help them. So he was going on about documentation and doing all the kind of dev stuff. But I always think it's good. It's a good thing to do to try and help the people coming behind. So me being able to help Shaz, just get some limelight. He got a huge buzz out of it, and he's like, "I'm going to do this," and he's loving creating content now. So that's brilliant. So kudos to him.
And I think, to be honest, Gregor, there's probably a lot more people you've undoubtedly helped over the time as well. I mean, like I say, I think I reached out to you, probably back June, July time last year. We had a little bit of a chat because, again, for the same reasons as you've just described there. It's, I suppose to some people it can be quite a scary thing to kind of turn to the community. When I put content out, am I going to be judged somehow? Am I going to be told, oh, that's wrong? And it's not like that at all, is it? I mean, how do you find it?
It's not like that at all. So people are always scared about doing videos and stuff like that. Even for the Advent calendar 2 years ago, there was a lot of people going, I'd really like to take part, but I don't really know what to do and how to go about it. So people might not even have used Camtasia before, not even got a blog. Not got a blog. So you just try and do your best to help them. The whole point of the Advent calendar was to try and find these people and help them. That's the only reason why we did it, to just try and help people create content. So that's kind of why we started it.
No, and I think what you take away. I think didn't it go up on the Microsoft Learn TV as well? I think the initial opening Izzy did the keynote for it, didn't she? And that got viewed by a silly amount, didn't it? That
1 million people.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, this all comes from people like us. I don't want to put myself in that bracket, but just the normal everyday guy or girl that's working in the IT industry, that rather than just being focused on your work internally, which of course we've all got to do to pay the bills, and it helps, like you say, having good management and people understand, but just turn the focus a little bit to the outside. And I can obviously only speak for myself, but the amount of new like virtual friends that I've made now over Twitter and LinkedIn, and kind of like you say, it's phenomenal. And to be honest, I can't wait to get back to the face to come and meet you all properly and have a beer and a bit of a laugh about it all. But I mean, I want to. There's so much. I know where we've gone over the hour mark, Gregor, but if you've got the time, because I know there's certainly a lot more that you've done on the community side. So. You help organise the Glasgow Azure user group, which I think.
Well, everyone, I do, but I don't really. Sarah, to be fair, Sarah does 99.9% of it, and I just help out when she needs me. So I'm not going to take any. I'm not going to take any kudos for that, to be honest.
And that's Sarah Lean. That's Sarah Lean, isn't it? So Sarah Lean, I mean, So, but I think, to be honest, I think that was probably because I remember speaking with Sarah when I first started off with the Welsh Azure user group, and again, that's another part. I think community. If you're scared or worried about reaching out to something, or doing a blog post or a video, look around for a local user group. And I guess by local, I regularly, when I can, join the Glasgow user group now, because we're all virtual, and I know it's the other way around. But there's a great deal of user groups out there, isn't there? For people to kind of hook into.
I think there's actually a map somewhere. There's a map of the user groups as well. So there's like map of the world, actually, not even just the UK.
I think Sarah did a website, didn't she? I'll have to try and dig that out, and maybe I've shared it a few times actually. I think Sarah put together that map, didn't she?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
We'll
I'm
dig it
not
out.
sure.
We'll
Got the right link. Oops.
yeah, we'll
Just
put it in
clicked
the
it.
links. But I mean, I don't know how to
Yeah.
wrap this up, Gregor. I mean, to be honest, I could probably carry on speaking to you for the next 3 or 4 hours. But I mean, to try and summarise what we've gone through then, and the kind of point behind this video. If you've managed to get to the hour, I know sometimes these videos don't get a lot of airtime, but personally, like you say there, with podcasts, if you can afford the time and you just watch a few of these videos, I think some of the insights and the tips that you get from people are, you're not going to get from anywhere else unless you kind of live and breathe that world yourself. So, I mean, in summary, what have we gone through tonight, Gregor? We've talked about what it means to be an Azure architect, what you think it is from a dev perspective and from an operations perspective, and we've kind of talked about that whole part of the day-to-day working. How do we create good content in order to kind of describe and apply what we learn about Azure into real business situations, isn't it? How do we apply that knowledge to make it work for business? And we come full circle to community, and like I say, Gregor, we could probably go on and find another 5 or 6 topics to carry on talking, couldn't we?
We're just really lucky. We've got a really great community. Everyone's really brilliant. So definitely, if you're not part of the community, just try and become part of the community. I'm only on Twitter. I'm not really on Facebook or anything like that. I just find all my community on Twitter. My number one tip is follow as many people as you can on Twitter. Now, people think, oh, I don't want to do that, but I follow absolutely everyone I can. Anyone with Azure, anyone with community content, I follow them. So I try and grow my network as much as possible.
No, absolutely, and if you have managed to get to the end of this video and you're watching this, I think it's probably fair to say reach out. You've got no problem with people reaching out to you on Twitter. You're there, to help people, and likewise, I'm the same. I think I'm a relative newbie to this world with doing these videos and the community content. I'm hoping to do a little bit more myself over the coming months and years, but we'll see how far I get before I get told to put my silly lights away and stop flashing logos about the place. But honestly, Gregor, like I say, I mean, it's been brilliant to have you on as a guest. I think when I first thought of this series, you were one of the first sort of 2 or 3 people. It was like I had 2 or 3 people. You were up there with one of the people I wanted to invite on, because I think you've certainly influenced a massive amount with how I've approached community. We've had various interchanges over social media. So I personally thank you for your help so far, Gregor. And I think it just goes to show, turn away from the day job inward looking of your work on a daily basis and just focus a little bit on community. And I think it's probably fair to say you get tenfold out. Would you agree with that?
I've been really lucky. I've had a lot of doors open. So when I first done this, one of the cloud advocates really liked what I was doing in the UK and said, "Do you want to come down and meet Scott Guthrie?"
Wow.
At the Microsoft offices in London?" And I was like, "Yes."
Okay.
So I mean, it can open doors. I mean, I'm not doing it to open doors, but you'd be surprised just by how much helping people you can get. Like, you can get some nice outcomes.
Yeah, so Gregor, I can't thank you enough for obviously joining me today. It's been fantastic. Really enjoyed the talk. Can't wait to see what else you got coming for the community. But on that note, thanks so much for joining me, Gregor.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks a lot. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, Johnny.